Hello everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Nico's Aquatics. This is Nico, your host. Today we're going to be talking about TDS. What is TDS? Total Dissolved Solids. I'm going to be explaining to you what it is, how it is going to affect your tank, where it comes from, how to fix it. Also going to be doing a little experiment. So let's get into it. Alright, so for those of you who don't know, TDS is Total Dissolved Solids. Something that's, I don't really know if it's considered new in the hobby, but something that really hasn't been, it's not really talked about that much unless you're in the shrimp world. And I did get some new neons, green neons. Also removed the rocks, dragon stone. I added some driftwood, because I have been having some problems with the TDS in this tank. It's at a manageable level right now. It's around 300. What you want is, if you have shrimp, you want it to be around the 150s. 200 is okay. You want it to be really low. Basically, the shrimp use it to molt, the ectoskeleton, to basically, when they shed it, produce a new one. That has TDS involved in it as well. So it really is, with fish, certain fish can take a lot. Like the dwarf pygmy cory cats, which I just did a species Saturday on a couple weeks ago. Check that out. They can take really high rates. Like when this tank was really high, the rasboris and the pygmies were fine. It was at 600. And my tap water is not that high. Normally in the tap water, it's around 150, 200. You can check that. We'll be using a gauge here. This is just a little generic one. I think I pay like $7 on Amazon. Or eBay, and it also has a temperature gauge as well, so that's really convenient. But in the tap water, it's around 200. So what you could do to bring down the TDS before we get into a little experiment is use distilled water. You can get distilled water for like 99 cents at most stores, sometimes even cheaper. That's the way. What you can do, you can kind of mix it in. You don't want to use just distilled water because it is lacking a lot of nutrients. Distilled water is going to be 0 TDS, and it also has basically no pH. So you can't just use distilled water in general, just on itself. What normally you want to do is 50-50, depending on how high your TDS is. If your TDS is really high in your tap, you maybe can do 70 distilled, 30% tap water. What I do is about 50-50. So right now it's about 50-50, and it's about 350. I don't know why, or excuse me, around 300. I'm not really sure exactly why this tank was so high. I believe it had something to do with the dragon stones that were in there, because those do let off a little bit of particles into the water, depending if they've been used before. So I went in and took that out, and I got it under control. I got the driftwood in there. So basically TDS is anything that is dissolved into your water. Basically anything, and I'm going to show you an example. Anything you put in there, prime, dechlorinator, slime production in there, anything that produces slime for the fish, food, any sort of liquid fertilizers for plants. I mean, anything you put in there, any sort of bacteria, beneficial bacteria, if you put alder cones, driftwood produces that, uneaten food, dead plants, everything that you put in your tank is eventually going to turn to a dissolved solid in the tank. So you have to be very careful what you put in your tank. I'm just so now that I gave you a 101 on TDS, how to prevent it, how to fix it, all that, what it is, I'm going to be showing you a little bit of an experiment here, just to kind of give you an idea of how TDS chemicals in your water affect TDS. So we have 4 Dixie cups here, basically filled to the same point, like that second line there, of just the distilled water, which has a reading of 0, which let me just go ahead and show you here. So this is 0. I have it in the water, 0, 0, 0, 0. My tank should be about under 350. 307, 300. Safe level there. I want to get some of that off because I don't want to have any extras in here. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be putting chemicals into the water, into the Dixie cups here. I'm going to be putting a few drops of this is basically prime. It's just a dechlorinator. Add some slime. As you can see, that's all it is, just like a water conditioner. I'm going to be putting some flake food, some aquarium salt, and also some pH buffer in there. This is just kind of to give you an idea, even if you don't use these particular products, just to give you an idea how everything you put in your tank does affect it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to have to pause the video here to do like the salt and everything, but just an idea here. So I'm going to put like 2 or 3 drops in here, which is about a gallon. That's about 2 or 3. All right, so we got just the tiniest bit of flake food. I'm going to put it in the second one here. It'll even come off. All right, so we got the aquarium salt, which if you're not using aquarium salt, I highly recommend. It's really good for just general good water quality. All right, so I'm just gonna put a tad bit more because I don't know, just for the purpose of the experiment. All right, so what we're gonna do is gonna give it a couple minutes, just to give you an idea here, folks, of how much this stuff really affects your water. And this is a very tiny bit of water here, and we put a very small amount of everything. Everything is basically fast dissolving except for the food, so that's going to take a little bit longer to show up in the TDS. So we're going to check back in a couple minutes. All right, so it's been about 30 minutes or so. We should have a good reading on these. And again, this is all in order here. So this one is the water conditioner. This is the food. That one is the aquarium salt. That one is the buffer. So it's about 16. Yes, when it flashes, the ppms kind of can't really see it too much on here because of the light. But yeah, it's about 16. So when it flashes, that means it's solid. It's gotten a good reading. That's 16. I did add a little bit more food in this. 25 reading. This is the salt. Gotta stir it up a bit because it gets to the bottom. Not too much there. 2, 3, 5, 4. It's about 4 or 5. Not bad. This is the buffer. Oh yeah, see that? And there it is. Look at that. 335, folks. That is crazy. All right, so think of it this way. This is a good way to think of it for you guys. So, so basically, if you have around 200 in your tap water, right? If you go to fill up a tank with the tap water, you're gonna have about 200 ppm of the parts per million of the TDS. So that's a good, you know, base. 200. That's fine, perfectly fine for anything, shrimp, everything. Also, one thing about shrimp is that if you're getting it from a reputable source, a lot of times they will tell you what the shrimp, that particular batch you're getting, what the TDS is coming from that tank. Normally for breeders, they have it really low, around 120, 150. But if you put them in the 200 ppm TDS tank, they're going to be fine. Make sure you float them correctly if you want to drip feed them, or if you don't want to do all that, just get a Dixie cup or whatever. Take a little bit, float them for about 30 minutes, get the temperature right. Put a couple of, pour a little bit in there from the tank, just to get them acclimated to the TDS. But a jump like that is not going to affect them that much. They will have it listed of what the TDS is from the tank they're coming from. A lot of fish as well, nano fish. So, if you have it, like I was saying, sorry. So there's a lot of information here. I want to get it all into one video here. So if you have a tank of tap water 200, you put that in the tank. Then you go and put some drops of the water conditioner in there. As you saw, it was around 10 to 15, I believe it was. So you can add 10 to 15 amounts of TDS ppm into the tank. So let's say you have 5 gallons, you have 200 gallons of tap or 200 TDS of tap water. Then you add the dechlorinator for 5 gallons. This tank, for example. So you're gonna get about 250 of TDS. Anything you put in there, then you also have to take into account the feeding. If you have any sort of aquarium salt, which again I highly recommend, any sort of other liquid fertilizers, that's going to add as well. All that jumps up. Very important. I like to gauge the TDS at least twice a week, sometimes even more than that. I will put a link down below for this specific gauge here. But I mean, you can get, and it's not like that one's a special one, or I think it was like $5 to $10 or something like that. But just to make it easier for you, if you want to buy that specific one, that'll be down below. It's not like an affiliate link or anything. But also very important, you know, with ammonia and nitrates, all that's going to eventually go away using your filter, beneficial bacteria. But TDS will not. It is going to compile, get higher and higher throughout time. The only way to get that removed is if you do a water change. You know, if you have a high TDS in your tank, if it's really, really high and you're concerned it's an emergency situation, do a 20 to 30% water change, add distilled water. You don't even have to put any dechlorinator or anything into the distilled water. I like to put a little bit of conditioner in there just to add some slime to the water. But you don't have to use the recommended dosage because you're not taking out chlorine, because there's nothing in it. It's zero. Everything is zero. Ammonia, nitrate, pH, everything is zero on distilled water. But again, you cannot use just that. Use 50-50, rough estimate, depending on what your tap water is. If you guys are concerned about this, just test your tap water first. Test your tank, see where you're at. If you have any questions about how to take care of this, or anything I didn't cover, any questions you need answered, just drop it in the comments below. I'll be happy to help you. Thank you very much. God bless. Hopefully you learned something. And as always, guys, stay wet. Peace out.